WikiLeaks está recaudando 100.000 euros de recompensa por uno de los secretos más buscados de Europa, la Asociación Transatlántica de Comercio e Inversión.
This is something enormous. It is about a final control, and it's the United States saying there may be another power in the world, but we will be the ultimate power.
The TTIP is the most important thing that is happening in Europe right now. It's a secretive deal being negotiated between Europe and the United States.
Una vez firmado, consolidará una parte primordial del plan de gobierno estadounidense para crear un nuevo bloque global que asegurará el dominio de sus empresas más grandes. Y para entender el porqué, tenemos que regresar a los años 50.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA.
Después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, los Estados Unidos equivalía a la mitad de la economía mundial y fue capaz de escribir las primeras reglas de comercio internacional a su favor. La Organización Mundial de Comercio fue creada en este contexto y los Estados Unidos dictaba regulaciones que favorecieron a las empresas norteamericanas. Pero a medida que economías como la de China e India se unieron a la OMC, esta se convirtió en una arena más democrática y a los Estados Unidos se les dificultó ejercer control sobre la toma de decisiones.
At the WTO, at its Doha rounds, India spoke up and Brazil spoke up, and the US lost control.
I think it's no use beating around the bush. This meeting has collapsed.
Los Estados Unidos necesitaban entonces una nueva estrategia para mantener su dominio global y en un clásico estilo americano le hicieron a lo grande. Para lograr evitar a la OMC, están creando los 3 acuerdos internacionales más grandes que el mundo ha visto. Se llaman las 3 grandes T: la Asociación Transpacífica, o TPP en inglés, la Asociación Transatlántica de Comercio e Inversión, o TTIP, y el Acuerdo de Comercio en Servicios, o TISA. Todas están siendo negociadas en secreto.
We only found out when WikiLeaks was able to leak parts of them.
What's interesting is when you look across all of these deals, whether it be TTIP, TPP or TISA, China is excluded, but also Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, they're all excluded because those are the emerging economies.
What is not often understood is that these agreements are part of a geopolitical war. This is a new war which is taking place between the United States and China. The United States is very scared of the rise of China, so it has moved to militarily encircle it through what is called the pivot to Asia, and now it's moving on to doing that economically.
The basic idea which comes across from reading US strategy papers is the construction of a new grand enclosure. And to put inside this grand enclosure, the United States, 51 other countries, 1.6 billion people, and 2/3 of global GDP. To integrate Latin America away from Brazil and towards the United States, to integrate Southeast Asia away from China and towards the United States, and to integrate Western Europe, pulling it away from Eurasia as a whole and towards the Atlantic.
De las grandes T's, WikiLeaks ha revelado 4 capítulos del TPP, que afecta a 12 países en las Américas y Asia Occidental. También hemos obtenido y revelado el texto de TISA, que afecta a 52 países, incluyendo a la Unión Europea. Pero casi todo TTIP sigue siendo secreto. Cuando se firme TTIP, cubrirá la mitad del PIB global y afectará a todos los estados europeos. Aún así, los parlamentarios europeos enfrentan restricciones serias al tratar de acceder al texto propuesto.
Yeah, I find it incredible as well that for something which is a trade agreement, not a matter of life and death in terms of security, where maybe you can understand some restrictions, and we don't even like those very much, but for a trade agreement, you know, that we can't actually make notes about what it is we're reading, issues that we might want to take away to look into, which actually might reassure us, you know, if we really were able to sort of take this away and look at it in depth.
We don't have access to the key documents, the most important ones, because the devil is in the detail. When it comes to trade agreements, you need to know exactly what's in the text so that you can assess what the impact's going to be.
If EU parliamentarians want to see the TTIP, they have to call the US embassy and make an appointment. The appointments are only available 2 days a week for 2-hour time slots. Only 2 parliamentarians are permitted at once. They go to the US embassy, they have to hand in every electronic device, so they cannot possibly make a copy. They must agree to keep everything confidential, and then they're led to a secure reading room where 2 US embassy guards watch everything that they do. How can EU parliamentarians possibly understand what they're negotiating for Europe under these circumstances?
Las corporaciones más grandes del mundo no tienen ese mismo problema. Ellos han recibido acceso VIP desde el primer día y han tenido una abundante influencia en sus negociaciones.
People, the likes of you and I, are excluded. Governments, to a great extent, are excluded. Those who are included are the multinational corporations.
These agreements are basically corporate ownership agreements. The funny thing about free trade agreements, as we understand them, is they often have nothing to do with trade in the sense of the mutual lowering of tariffs. What they're about is enshrining an investor rights regime in the respective countries and ensuring that corporations can run wild in the respective economies with very, very little regulation or impingement by government or authorities.
These treaties will have huge implications for literally almost every critical issue that an individual citizen or community would care about: health, education, the environment, privacy, access to medicines. I mean, the list could go on.
Uno de los aspectos más criticados del TTIP es un sistema llamado ISDS en inglés. Es un tribunal internacional secreto que le permite a una compañía demandar a un estado sobre virtualmente cualquier cosa que puedan decir que afecta a su inversión.
If a protest affects their profits, they can sue. If laws affect their profits, they can sue. If new regulations might impact where or what they want to do with their money, they can sue.
This is a new power which will be handed over to US corporations to sue the governments of Europe in a parallel judicial system which is available to them alone. So people have no access to it, domestic firms have no access to it, governments have no access to it. It's just there for foreign investors, in this case, US corporations.
Basándose en la historia de ISDS, los críticos argumentan que la soberanía y democracia europeas están bajo un serio riesgo. Entre las previas demandas se incluye la compañía sueca Vattenfall, que demandó al Estado alemán por $3.7 billones por eliminar la producción de energía nuclear. British American Tobacco demandó a Australia por pasar una ley que limita la publicidad para la venta de cigarrillos. La compañía francesa Veolia demandó a Egipto por elevar el salario mínimo. Los defensores del TTIP dicen que para lograr un mercado único entre la Unión Europea y los Estados Unidos, las barreras regulatorias tienen que ser eliminadas. De esta manera, por ejemplo, un fabricante de cinturones de seguridad de Estados Unidos no necesitaría pasar por las pruebas de seguridad una segunda vez, ya que la Unión Europea estaría de acuerdo en reconocer los estándares de seguridad de Estados Unidos. Esto, argumentan ellos, bajaría los precios para los consumidores. Pero ¿qué tan seguros son los estándares en Estados Unidos?
So in the USA, 70% of all processed food sold in supermarkets contains genetically modified ingredients, whereas in the European Union, we've said quite clearly we don't want GM ingredients in our food chain. Similarly, in the US, 90% of all beef is produced using growth hormones, which have been found to be carcinogenic in humans. So they're banned in the European Union. And what the US government is saying is that under TTIP, under the free trade rules that they want to bring in, European consumers don't get the right to choose.
TTIP incluye todos los más importantes sectores públicos en Europa, incluyendo educación, agua, ferrocarriles, servicios postales y, más controversialmente, también incluye los servicios de salud pública.
What is so scary about this is that corporations want to lock in their power. So they not only want increased power, but they want to make it impossible for sovereign governments to reverse the changes which are going to give them power. So, for example, with TTIP, if it passes with ISDS in it, the privatization of the National Health Service, which is happening in the UK, can never be reversed.
What is democratic about an enormous imposition of power on countries whose citizens have no way of knowing what's going on, of debating it, or influencing their government in its decision. That's anti-democratic.
The history of these agreements shows that they're very difficult to change unless people can see what's in them. And that's why they're kept secret. Because when the contents are revealed, it generates an opposition.
WikiLeaks ha tenido considerable éxito retrasando el TPP al abrir un debate acerca del mismo y al revelar los borradores secretos de TISA. Nuestra publicación de un acuerdo anterior, el ACTA, logró su eliminación. WikiLeaks está recaudando 100.000 euros por uno de los secretos más buscados de Europa, la Asociación Transatlántica de Comercio e Inversión, TTIP. Ayuda al mundo a ser un lugar más transparente. Haz tu parte. Visita wikileaks.org/TTIP-reward.